All right, so I want to talk about the Barclay Goodrow waiver claim by San Jose. And I do apologize if I say Freddie Goodrow. I'm not referring to Freddie Goodrow of the Minnesota Wild. I'm referring to Barclay Goodrow, who played in Tampa, who played in New York, and just got claimed by the San Jose Sharks. Let's go through his stats real quick. Barclay Goodrow, 31 years old, turned 31 in February, 6'2", 215 pounds. For those of you using the metric system, 98 kilograms. He's also signed for 3 more years at a cap hit of $3.641 million. He also has a no trade clause to 15 teams. Submits a 15-team no trade list, so he can be traded to the 16 remaining teams. Remember, he's on the 32nd team. His career year was in 2021-2022. Excuse me. He played 79 games, had a career high 13 goals, tied a career high 20 assists, and had a career high in points of 33. He was also a plus 13. I think it was the season after he tied the number of assists, and he was a plus 16. I don't have the stats right in front of me. I should, but I don't. Last year he played 80 games, had 4 goals, 8 assists for 12 points. He was a minus 13 on the year. But wait, everybody's talking about his playoff performance. Let's talk about it. Playoffs this past season, played 16 games, had 6 goals, 2 assists for 8 points. He was a plus 3. Played well. His shooting percentage was absurdly high, which is not sustainable. But looking at his career playoff totals, 97 games played, 12 goals, 12 assists, 24 points, a plus 6. So that's still less than his career year a few years ago. GMs like to sign a player based on recent playoff success. You have a good playoff run, that helps your chances with your next contract. We saw that with Charlie Coyle in Boston. But usually a one-off playoff, like a great playoff run, is not usually indicative of how you'll continue to play in the playoffs. Should your past career stats, should it be out of line with your normal stats from playoffs, for example. Some guys definitely show up in the playoffs every single year compared to the regular season, and some guys kind of disappear in the playoffs consistently compared to the regular season. Barclay Goodrow, about the same in terms of playoff stats versus regular season stats. You kind of get what you see. There's not a whole lot of. This year was kind of a surprise, but it's also an abnormality in his overall stats. I wouldn't expect him to repeat this if the playoffs started again today. I just wouldn't. I like Barclay Goodrow. I think he's a solid bottom 6, probably a 4th line player at this point. But essentially what happened was the Rangers put Barclay Goodrow on unconditional waivers for the purposes of a buyout. Once Barclay Goodrow was on waivers, the San Jose Sharks, who had the first overall waiver claim, mind you, snatched him up off of waivers and claimed him. So he's now a member of the San Jose Sharks at his remaining salary. To buy out a player, you have to place them on unconditional waivers. If no team usually wants a player that's being bought out, so they almost always clear. Except for this scenario, he didn't clear. And there's also, I've been doing some research, and some reports are talking about no movement clause. And there's some truth to if Barclay Goodrow had a no movement clause, what would happen? Essentially, a no movement clause lets you skip the waivers process. The team will still place you on waivers, but if anyone claims you, the player with the no movement clause has the right to reject any waiver claim. And then you can essentially skip the waiver process, even though you still have to file it as a formality, and just be bought out. Barclay Goodrow, from what we know from reports even surfacing as recent as 45 minutes ago, did not want to go to the San Jose Sharks. Now, there's no concrete proof that the San Jose Sharks were on Goodrow's no-trade list. He hasn't come out and said that. There are no definitive reports that say that, but it is widely believed among people in the inner loop of the NHL and that community that San Jose was on his no-trade list. So why? How did this come to be? This is a bizarre thing. Why did this happen? Well, Barclay Goodrow, for his production, his point production, for his cap hit, you don't want to pay a 4th line forward over $3.5 million a year. You're kind of getting into that probably third line with a little bit of upside realm in terms of cap hit. It wasn't a good it wasn't a good contract at the end of the day. Goodrow brings more to the table than just his offensive stats. He's all right defensively. He's pretty solid defensively. Big guy, can play physical if you need him to. Can get in the face of the opponent. Right, kind of a leader. I think he was an alternate captain in New York. So there's probably some good locker room stuff going on there with Goodrow. But at the end of the day, this is a business, and when it comes down to cap management, and you want to kind of shed some of those not so savory contracts, for example, and Goodrow is a casualty of that. Now, realistically, on the open market, New York would probably have to pay some type of fee, whether it be a draft pick or a prospect, to dump off Goodrow's contract to a team. Odds are New York did not want to pay for that, and at the end of the day, it was probably fine with just doing the buyout, right? You get a cap hit against the team for 6 years, and it's like under $1 million or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't significant. Excuse me. Right? San Jose's over there probably like, we want Barclay Goodrow, but we don't want to pay you for him because we're doing you a favor by taking him off your hands. Right? So it's kind of it's most likely a thing where neither team wanted to pay for this player to move. And by way of trade market, somebody is usually paying something. You can do future considerations, and that usually results to something insignificant, but nonetheless something. Right? So this is where the New York Rangers are probably looking at this and be like, if we place him on waivers, you have the first pick. You have the first waiver claim. You could just pick him up for free. That way, neither of us are paying anything to move this player. That's probably what happened. It looks like there was a backdoor conversation that's coming to fruition on the internet. But at the end of the day, with Barclay Goodrow, like this financially, this makes the most sense for him. He gets to keep his $3.64 million salary, at least for this upcoming year, pending a buyout maybe next year. We'll see, but I don't know. I doubt it. So he gets the $3.6 million. I think if he gets bought out, he gets 2/3 of that contract, so it's about $2.2 million per year. And then he's probably getting a league minimum contract if he can find a job, which I'm sure he could given his playoff success and his Stanley Cup win. He's probably going to get a fourth-line job somewhere. But you're talking about a league minimum type of salary. So that kind of bumps you up to about $3 million. So at the end of the day, by getting bought out, you're probably losing a little over $500,000 a year over the course of 3 years. That's somewhere in the realm of $1.9 million he could be losing out on. So financially for Goodrow, this is a good thing. San Jose, San Francisco, the Bay Area is a very nice place to be and live. You can talk about the taxes in California and how they're aggressive, but to be fair, the taxes in New York aren't a whole lot better. They're fairly close. You're still paying taxes. You're paying a pretty good amount in taxes in both states regardless. So I don't know about the tax thing. I've heard that thrown out there. California has high taxes. I can understand why he doesn't want to go there. New York also has really high taxes as well. I think both states have a wealth tax as well. So if you make over a certain amount, you get taxed even more. Regardless, it's just a bizarre thing. You don't usually see a player put on unconditional waivers to be bought out and then picked up by another team. There's usually a reason the team is buying out the player. Now for San Jose, you want to get a little bigger, I understand. You want to kind of get a little better on defense. Your offense should be fine within the next year or two with your young guys coming up and Celebrini joining the team. And you got some pretty strong guys coming in. But the defense is a liability on that team. And that's putting it nicely. They need a lot of defensive work. Goodrow should help with that. To be strong on defense, you not only need a strong defensive core goaltender, you need buy-in from your forwards to play defense as well. Goodrow is a leader by that. So there's a lot of things he can show and teach these younger kids that'll set this team up for success in the years to come. Which, there are certain teams in the NHL that are missing that aspect of their game. Just coming to mind, Buffalo and Ottawa. Right? Goodrow also knows what it takes to win a Stanley Cup. I know GMs buy into that notion a lot. If a player's won a Stanley Cup, their value is they're a little more valuable in the eyes of GMs. And while that can be true for some players, I think the value can be a little overblown for some of these players as well, right? So I don't know. I always take that with a grain of salt. Like, yeah, he's won a Stanley Cup, but also, yeah. So Barclay Goodrow, now a member of the San Jose Sharks. Reports are coming out how he's extremely unhappy about how this went down and how he ended up in San Jose. And now that he's a San Jose Shark, not too happy about that. So we'll see. There may be more coming with this. This could be something where maybe he refuses to play and goes through a contract termination process, or I don't know. This pending Barclay Goodrow and his willingness to play in San Jose, this could result in either a good situation for San Jose or a not so good situation for San Jose. But at the end of the day, so far it really hasn't cost them anything. And if you terminate the contract, there's no cap implications of that, right? So that's something the player and the team both have to agree to do. San Jose, I just want to throw this out here because his cap hit is high. San Jose is a team looking to reach the cap floor. They need players that they can pay money to. We saw that with Chicago last year, giving out some questionable contracts. Nick Foligno getting over $4 million, and I know that's kind of worked out. But for what Foligno's done in the past, it was a bit of an overpay at the time. Taylor Hall I thought was fine. Corey Perry getting $4+ million was for a fourth line, kind of enforcer-ish. Not really an enforcer, but kind of a grinder at this point in his career. Some of these teams try to give these players a little more money to reach that cap floor. It doesn't. The contract, in terms of the dollar amount for San Jose, doesn't concern me a whole lot. I think they were willing to overlook the overall cap hit because they need to meet the minimum floor anyway, cap floor. So I don't hate it, but it's also a bizarre thing. You don't see it often. It's there's different reports going around of if this player had a no movement clause, he couldn't be bought out, and that's not true. We've seen players with no movement clauses get bought out before, and there's just a lot of conflicting information out there. So I did a little bit of research, not a whole lot, but it's just one of those fun things that doesn't happen too often, and it's fun to talk about. So let me know if you have questions about any of this. If you want me to do a video on waivers, I can tell you all about waivers now. I knew a lot before, but not as much as I thought I knew. There's a lot of levels to it. So I'm happy to talk about that if you want a video on that. I can go through Goodrow's career stats, his playoff stats. I can go through that, kind of where he's been. I can do more of a player profile on Goodrow. On the open market right now, I don't think we're talking about anything more than a fourth line player. You might see some team willing to take a risk and have him on their third line, but I don't know if that's going to work out. His career high for a 31-year-old, his career high in offensive production, not quite at the level you want a third liner to be at. You want them at about a half point per game, and his postseason kind of a bit of an anomaly. So that's all I got. I appreciate you guys. Take care, right?